Welcome back to our channel where we provide summaries and insights to books in the personal development space. Today's book is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. Dare to Lead by Brené Brown is a transformative book that redefines what leadership looks like in today's world. While many people associate leadership with having authority, control, or being the smartest person in the room, Brené Brown flips this notion entirely. She shows us that the most impactful leaders aren't the ones who have all the answers, but the ones who are willing to be vulnerable, ask tough questions, and engage in hard, uncomfortable conversations. Brown's approach is radically different, yet it taps into something essential about how humans connect and work together. Brené Brown is a research professor at the University of Houston and a renowned expert on topics like vulnerability, shame, empathy, and courage. She gained global recognition after her TED Talk, The Power of Vulnerability, went viral, and her work has since influenced millions of people, from CEOs to everyday individuals. Her research focuses on human emotions and the way they shape our lives, relationships, and leadership styles. After decades of studying what it takes to lead effectively in environments ranging from corporate offices to classrooms, Brené distilled her findings into Dare to Lead. The book was born out of years of data and stories from real leaders who faced the messy, challenging realities of modern leadership and came out stronger by embracing vulnerability. What led her to write this book was a realization that people often misinterpret vulnerability as weakness, especially in leadership roles. Through her research, Brené discovered that vulnerability is actually a sign of strength. It takes courage to be open, admit mistakes, and ask for help. In Dare to Lead, she teaches us that leadership isn't about titles or power. It's about recognizing potential in people and processes and being brave enough to nurture that potential, even when it's tough. This idea sounds simple, but in practice, it requires a deep commitment to courage, empathy, and integrity, which are the foundational themes of the book. Part 1. Rumbling with Vulnerability. So let's kick off with the big theme of the book, vulnerability. Now, when most of us hear the word vulnerability, we think of weakness, insecurity, or even failure. But Brené flips that on its head. She argues that vulnerability isn't weakness at all. It's about showing up and being seen when you can't control the outcome. It's about stepping into tough situations without having all the answers. Think about this in a leadership context. How many times have you felt the pressure to look like you have it all together, like you're always in control? But in reality, leadership often requires us to face uncertainty. That could be launching a new project without knowing if it'll succeed, giving honest feedback, or making a tough decision when the stakes are high. Brown introduces this concept of rumbling with vulnerability, which is really just a fancy way of saying lean into discomfort and embrace the uncertainty that comes with leadership. And she's not talking about being reckless. This is about acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, but being willing to show up and work through it anyway. In doing so, you inspire your team to do the same. A huge part of this is building trust, which she says is the glue of leadership. Without trust, you can't have real conversations, and without real conversations, you can't get to innovation, change, or success. Brené even offers a framework for how leaders can rumble with vulnerability. It's called braving, which stands for boundaries. Leaders must be clear about what's acceptable and what's not, both for themselves and their teams. Setting boundaries helps prevent misunderstandings and burnout, ensuring that everyone knows where the lines are. Leaders should also respect others' boundaries, creating a culture where people feel safe to express their limits without fear of repercussions. Reliability. A key component of trust is being reliable. This means showing up when you say you will and delivering on your promises. Leaders must be consistent in their actions, so their teams know they can depend on them. Reliability also means managing your commitments wisely and not overpromising, which could erode trust if expectations aren't met. Accountability. Great leaders own their mistakes and hold themselves accountable for their actions. This also means creating an environment where others can take responsibility for their own errors without fear of blame or punishment. By modeling accountability, leaders encourage honesty and personal growth within their teams. Vault. Trust hinges on confidentiality. Leaders need to treat personal and professional conversations with discretion. What's shared in confidence must stay private, both to protect relationships and to ensure team members feel safe to speak freely. When people know that their leader is a vault, it deepens their trust. Integrity. This involves choosing what's right over what's easy or convenient. Leaders who operate with integrity are guided by their values and aren't afraid to make tough decisions, even when it's uncomfortable. Integrity fosters a sense of respect and authenticity within the team as leaders walk the talk and practice what they preach. Non-judgment. Brené emphasizes that leaders must create a space where people can ask for help or share their challenges without fear of being judged. When judgment is removed from the equation, it allows for more open communication and collaboration. It also encourages people to be more vulnerable and honest, knowing they won't be criticized. Generosity. Assume positive intent in your interactions with others. Generosity in this sense means giving people the benefit of the doubt and interpreting their actions in the most favorable light. Leaders who are generous in their interpretations of others create a culture of trust and kindness where team members feel valued and supported. By practicing the braving elements, leaders can build deep, authentic relationships based on trust, which in turn allows for more open, courageous conversations and fosters a culture of vulnerability and connection. Through braving, leaders can develop deep trust within their teams and foster a culture where people aren't afraid to be vulnerable. Part 2. Living into our values. In Living into Our Values, Brené Brown stresses that identifying and living by your values is essential for authentic leadership. However, she pushes back against the idea that values are just words on a mission statement or vague principles you bring up in meetings. Instead, she emphasizes that values must be embodied in how we behave, especially when things get difficult. It's easy to talk about your values when things are going well, but the true test is whether you stick to them under pressure. For instance, if you claim that you value honesty, are you willing to have that you value honesty? Are you willing to have difficult, honest conversations when avoiding the truth might feel easier or more comfortable? Brown uses the example of collaboration to show how values can be tested in real-life leadership. A leader might say they value collaboration, but when a project is falling behind or when stakes are high, they may default to making unilateral decisions, undermining teamwork. This disconnect between stated values and actual actions erodes trust. If you truly value collaboration, you have to involve your team in the decision-making process, even when time is short or tensions are high. It's these moments of stress where your commitment to your values becomes most apparent. To make this manageable, Brené encourages leaders to focus on just 2 core values. Why? Because narrowing down to 2 forces you to really think about what guides you at the deepest level. Trying to embody too many values often leads to none of them having a real impact. For example, if your 2 core values are integrity and growth, every decision you make should reflect a commitment to doing the right thing, integrity, and fostering learning and improvement, growth, even if it's uncomfortable. Focusing on these 2 values helps ensure you're making choices that align with your principles, creating consistency in how you lead, and fostering a workplace culture that reflects those values. Part 3. Braving trust. Trust is such a big theme in Dare to Lead that Brené dedicates a whole section to it. As she explains, trust is built in small moments, the day-to-day interactions where we show that we're reliable, that we listen, and that we're there for others. It's not about grand gestures or major decisions. It's about the little things. And trust isn't just about what leaders do. It's also about what they allow. Creating an environment where team members feel safe to speak up, make mistakes, or share their ideas is crucial. A leader who doesn't foster trust ends up with a disengaged, fearful team. And we all know that fear kills creativity and innovation. Brené talks about the importance of being clear and upfront about expectations. This means having tough conversations when necessary, rather than avoiding them or being passive-aggressive. She argues that clear is kind, and that being clear with people, even if it's uncomfortable, is far kinder than sugarcoating or avoiding issues until they explode. Trust, as Brené Brown describes, is built in the everyday moments when leaders show up consistently for their teams. It's not about grand gestures like hosting an elaborate company retreat or giving motivational speeches. Instead, trust grows when a leader follows through on promises, listens actively in meetings, and makes themselves available when someone needs support. For example, a leader who consistently makes time for one-on-one check-ins with their team members, offering genuine feedback and showing interest in their development, is creating a foundation of trust. These small, reliable actions build confidence in the leader and establish a culture where employees feel valued and supported. Let's take an example. Imagine a leader who notices that one of their team members is consistently underperforming. Instead of ignoring the issue or hoping it will resolve itself, the leader invites the employee for a private conversation. During this conversation, the leader openly addresses the performance concerns, but also takes the time to listen to the employee's side of the story. Maybe the employee has been struggling with unclear expectations or personal challenges that are impacting their work. By having this honest, direct conversation, while also expressing empathy, the leader not only addresses the issue, but also signals that they genuinely care about the employee's well-being and success. This is where clear is kind comes into play. Avoiding the conversation would have likely led to frustration on both sides, while addressing it directly but compassionately builds trust. Moreover, trust isn't just about what a leader does, but also what they allow. In a team setting, if a leader fails to address toxic behaviors like gossip or power plays, they undermine the trust they've worked so hard to build. For instance, imagine a scenario where a team member constantly interrupts others during meetings or dismisses their ideas. If the leader doesn't step in to create a respectful environment, it sends the message that this behavior is acceptable. On the flip side, a leader who calls out disrespectful behavior and sets clear expectations for collaboration and inclusivity strengthens the team's trust, not just in them, but in each other. They create a space where people feel safe to share ideas, make mistakes, and grow, knowing they're in a culture that values respect and accountability. Part 4. Learning to Rise. The final section of the book is all about resilience, or as Brené calls it, rising strong. She acknowledges that no matter how good a leader you are, no matter how well you rumble with vulnerability or how much trust you build, you're going to face setbacks. You're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. What matters is how you respond when things don't go as planned. Do you retreat into blame or shame, or do you face it head-on, learn from it, and grow? Brené gives practical tools for developing resilience and encourages leaders to share their own stories of failure with their teams. Why? Because when leaders own their mistakes and model resilience, they show others that it's okay to fail, as long as you rise again. She calls this the rising strong process, which involves 3 steps: the reckoning, the rumble, and the revolution. Guides leaders through the journey of dealing with emotional challenges and setbacks in a constructive way. These steps help leaders process difficult situations, confront their feelings, and ultimately grow from the experience, allowing them to show up stronger and more resilient. 1. The reckoning, recognizing your emotions. The first step, the reckoning, is all about self-awareness. It involves recognizing when you're in an emotional situation and acknowledging your feelings rather than avoiding or numbing them. Many leaders are used to pushing through tough moments without reflecting on how those moments affect them. But Brené emphasizes that this avoidance only leads to unresolved emotions and missed opportunities for growth. For example, imagine a leader who receives negative feedback from their team. Their initial reaction might be frustration, disappointment, or defensiveness. Instead of brushing off the feedback or jumping into action to fix things without reflection, the reckoning requires them to pause and recognize their emotions. Are they feeling embarrassed because they didn't expect the criticism? Angry because they think it's unfair? By identifying these feelings, they begin to understand what's truly going on beneath the surface. 2. The rumble, facing your emotions. Once you've acknowledged your emotions, it's time for the rumble, which is the hardest part of the process. This step requires leaders to dig deep and examine the stories they're telling themselves about the situation. Often we create narratives that might not be true, but they shape how we react. The rumble involves asking tough questions like, why am I feeling this way? What assumptions am I making about myself or others? Is there something I'm not seeing clearly? Continuing the example of the leader receiving negative feedback, during the rumble, they might realize they're telling themselves a story that they're not a good leader or that the team doesn't respect them. These narratives may be emotionally charged but inaccurate. By rumbling with these emotions and stories, the leader can break them down and see the situation more clearly. Perhaps the feedback wasn't about their overall leadership but about a specific area where improvement is needed. This self-examination helps leaders separate facts from emotional reactions so they can move forward with clarity and empathy. 3. The revolution, changing how you lead. Finally, the revolution is about using the lessons learned from the rumble to change how you show up and lead in the future. This step involves committing to personal growth and taking actionable steps to lead with more insight, resilience, and authenticity. The revolution is the transformation that occurs when leaders apply what they've learned from their emotional struggles, emerging stronger and more effective. In the case of the leader who faced negative feedback, the revolution might mean they decide to implement regular check-ins with their team to foster better communication, or they might work on managing their defensive reactions by practicing mindfulness or seeking feedback more frequently. The revolution isn't just about fixing mistakes, it's about embracing continuous learning and showing up differently based on the lessons from the reckoning and the rumble. It's the moment when leaders take their vulnerability and transform it into strength, becoming more attuned to their emotions and more connected to their team. This three-step process helps leaders navigate emotional challenges in a way that not only resolves issues, but also leads to personal and professional growth, fostering a culture of resilience, trust, and authenticity in their organizations. This process encourages leaders to be introspective, self-aware, and willing to evolve through their experiences. It's about turning failures into opportunities for personal and professional growth. At its core, Dare to Lead challenges us to rethink what leadership means in today's fast-paced, ever-evolving world. Brené Brown flips the conventional idea of leadership on its head, urging us to see vulnerability not as a weakness, but as the greatest act of strength. Being brave as a leader doesn't mean having all the answers or exuding constant confidence. It means being willing to engage in tough conversations, admit when you don't know something, and embrace the uncertainty that comes with trying new things. True leadership, according to Brené, is about showing up authentically, even when it's uncomfortable, because that's when real progress happens. In a world filled with uncertainty, the leaders who will make the biggest impact are those who dare to take risks by showing up fully, heart and mind, especially when it's challenging. Leaders who foster trust by being transparent, admit their mistakes, and seek feedback not only cultivate stronger relationships, but also inspire their teams to do the same. The message of Dare to Lead is particularly relevant in a time when people crave connection and trust from their leaders. When leaders show that they're human and fallible, it gives others permission to do the same, creating an environment where innovation, creativity, and collaboration can thrive. Ultimately, Dare to Lead reminds us that leadership isn't about perfection or authority, it's about courage. Being brave enough to show up, make mistakes, and learn from them is what sets great leaders apart from good ones. If you're seeking to cultivate a team culture where people feel safe, supported, and empowered to take risks, this book provides a roadmap. Brené's research is a powerful reminder that the most effective leaders are those who lead with vulnerability, inspire trust, and commit to continuous growth. There you have it, a deep dive into Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. This book is filled with insights that challenge traditional leadership norms and provide a fresh, actionable approach to leading in a way that brings out the best in both you and your team. If you're ready to embrace brave leadership, start rumbling with vulnerability, and rise strong in the face of setbacks, this book is definitely for you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel for more book summaries and insights designed to help you grow.